Welcome to Payback with Silas. Every day, a new story, lies, betrayal, payback. Let's begin.
They say loyalty pays off. But what if it just devalues you? I know that feeling too well. I poured everything into Bright Nest Ventures for 3 years, blood, sweat, and every late night. I brought them $3 million in fresh investments, led by a group of angel investors from Silicon Valley and New York. I was the guy who made things happen, the one everyone else relied on. Yet, when I asked for a raise, for any kind of recognition, I was met with silence. Or worse, empty promises. My name's Arlen. I'm 32 years old, and this story doesn't start with triumph. It starts with being invisible. Bright Nest was supposed to be the startup of the decade, nestled in a nondescript office park in San Jose. Our CEO, Gideon Marsh, was a charismatic guy with an infectious smile and a talent for making big speeches. But when it came down to the little things, like paying your key people fairly, he was nowhere to be found. At first, I didn't mind. I was young, ambitious, hungry. I told myself, Arlen, this is how it works. You sacrifice now, and you'll reap the rewards later. But later never came. I remember the first time I sat across from Gideon, 2 years ago, and asked for a raise. Arlen, you're invaluable, he said, but the company's burning cash. We can't afford salary bumps right now. Just hang tight. I believed him. I wanted to believe him. A year passed. Then another. Every meeting, every performance review, the same line, soon, Arlen. Soon. Meanwhile, my workload doubled. The investors I brought in started asking for quarterly updates. I was their point of contact, their guy on the ground, but my paycheck? Still the same. The worst part wasn't the money. It was the message, you're not worth more. I started noticing the way people looked at me in the hallways, like I was some kind of expendable cog. The buzz around the office was about new hires with fatter paychecks and shinier titles. And I was stuck. That feeling, of being used and then discarded, built up like a pressure cooker inside me. But I'm not the kind of guy to break quietly. 2 years. That's how long I played the waiting game. 2 years of swallowing my pride every time someone new walked in with a bigger salary and a better title. 2 years of pretending I didn't see the paychecks floating around while mine stayed frozen. It all came to a head one late Thursday afternoon in Redwood City. The office was quiet, half the team already gone for the weekend, and I was staring at an email from Gideon's assistant. The subject line read, your compensation discussion. My heart sank as I opened it. Arlen, after further review, the board has decided to freeze all salary adjustments until Q3 next year. We value your contributions greatly and appreciate your patience. Q3 next year. That was more than a year away. I felt like a joke. That night, I drove past the marina, my car windows down, cold air slicing through the silence. The city lights shimmered on the water, but all I could think about was how I was tethered to a sinking ship. I wasn't naive. I knew startups had their ups and downs. But this? This was deliberate. They were keeping me on the hook, doing everything but rewarding me for the risks I'd taken, the sleepless nights, the damn near impossible deadlines I'd met. I thought about all the meetings I'd led with the investors, men and women who trusted me, who bet millions on my vision and my ability to deliver. I was the bridge between their money and the company's future. And yet, when I asked for something as simple as a fair raise, I got nothing but walls. That night, I stopped pretending. I realized I had to start thinking about myself, about my worth, and not just the company's bottom line. After that night by the marina, something inside me shifted. I stopped chasing empty promises. Instead, I started planning my exit, not hastily, but meticulously. I wasn't going to burn bridges or create drama. I'd done my job. Now it was time to look out for myself. I kept doing what I did best, building relationships with investors, closing deals, and pushing the company forward. But my mindset changed. I became a ghost in the system, quiet but calculating. One afternoon, sitting in a coffee shop near Palo Alto, I updated my LinkedIn profile. Not the usual vague statements, but precise accomplishments. $3 million raised. Key partnerships negotiated. Product launches accelerated. I reached out to a few contacts from my network, discreetly, carefully. I didn't want to broadcast that I was looking, but I needed options. Weeks passed. I kept my head down at Bright Nest, but every email, every phone call from a recruiter felt like a lifeline. Meanwhile, Gideon and the board remained oblivious or indifferent to what I was doing. They still treated me like a replaceable part. But I was far from replaceable. Weeks turned into months, and the tension inside me grew. Every morning I walked into Bright Nest's sterile conference rooms feeling like a stranger in my own life. I was still the guy who brought in millions, who knew every investor's phone number by heart, who could recite pitch decks in my sleep. But to Gideon and the board, I was just a line item in the budget, one they wanted to keep as cheap as possible. One Tuesday, after a particularly frustrating meeting where my request for a bonus was dismissed with a vague, "We'll revisit it next quarter," I decided to take a break. I booked a week off and headed to Lake Tahoe. I needed distance, space to breathe, to think clearly. On the second day of my vacation, I got an unexpected email from an old contact, Maylise Vance, the COO of a fast-growing fintech startup in Denver called Silver Arc. We'd met a couple of years back at a conference, and she remembered me. "Arlen," the message read, "I'm looking for someone exactly like you. Your track record with investor relations is impressive. Interested in a confidential chat?" My heart raced. Was this real? Or just another tease? I replied immediately, careful not to sound desperate. We scheduled a video call for the next day. The interview was unlike anything I'd experienced. Maylise was sharp, direct, and transparent. No corporate fluff. She wanted results, and she wanted someone who wasn't afraid to push boundaries. We talked for over an hour, about my wins, my frustrations, my vision for what a company could be if it truly valued its people. By the end, Maylise said, "Arlen, we want you. We'll make it worth your while." For the first time in years, I felt seen. But I kept my cards close to the chest. I wasn't ready to quit Bright Nest yet, not publicly. That night, sitting in my cabin overlooking the pine trees, I let myself imagine a new future. One where my work wasn't just tolerated, it was celebrated. Back in San Jose, after that call with Maylise, everything inside me was buzzing with a strange mixture of excitement and caution. I knew this was more than just another job offer, it was my chance to reclaim my worth. But I also knew that walking away from Bright Nest, especially with everything still tied to my name, wouldn't be easy. The days that followed were a blur of carefully measured moves. I showed up to work like nothing had changed, but inside, the cracks were widening. Every interaction with Gideon felt heavier. His polite smiles began to feel thin, almost strained. The board was distracted, but I knew the moment I made a move, things would shift. I decided to confront the situation head-on. I scheduled a one-on-one meeting with Gideon. The conference room was cold, the afternoon light cutting through the blinds in sharp lines. "Gideon," I started, trying to keep my voice steady, "I've been with Bright Nest through every twist and turn. I raised $3 million, money that kept this company afloat. Yet, I've been asking for a raise for 2 years. I can't keep giving without getting anything back." He sighed, leaned back. "Arlen, you're an asset, no doubt. But the company's cash flow is tight. We can't reward you right now." I looked him straight in the eye. "I got an offer from Silver Arc. They want me to join their leadership team. With a salary and role that reflect my value." His face changed. The casual mask slipped, revealing a flicker of something darker, anger, maybe fear. "Are you threatening to leave?" No, I said firmly. I'm telling you the truth. I want to stay, but I can't be invisible anymore. He stood abruptly. Your loyalty is in question now. We can't have someone looking over our shoulder, interviewing elsewhere. The word hit me like a punch. Loyalty. They thought I was disloyal because I dared to consider my own future. Fine, Gideon said coldly, consider this your termination. Effective immediately. I sat there, stunned for a moment. Then something inside me snapped, not anger, not despair, but a calm resolve. Thank you for your honesty, I replied quietly. I'll make sure the transition is smooth. I packed up my things, walked out without looking back. That night, I didn't feel defeated. I felt free. Walking out of Brightnest's glass doors that day, I felt a strange mixture of relief and anticipation. I wasn't just leaving a job, I was shedding years of being undervalued, invisible, and ignored. Gideon's words still echoed in my head, you're disloyal. But I knew better. Loyalty isn't blind obedience. It's respect, trust, and mutual value. I gave them my all for years, and they cast me aside the moment I dared to look elsewhere. For the first few days, I let myself breathe. No frantic emails, no meetings, no being the guy who had to fix everyone else's mess. I was free. Then, exactly 1 week later, my phone started ringing. The first call was from Margot, one of the senior execs at Brightnest, her voice tight, almost panicked. Arlen, we need you. Something's happened with the investment agreements, you remember the shares tied to those $3 million rounds? I nodded silently, even though she couldn't see me. They're being revoked. The investors are threatening to pull out, and we're in trouble. We need your help to fix this. Another call came from Felix, the head of legal. We're looking at a potential lawsuit unless we can get this sorted immediately. Can you come back? We need you. The irony was thick. For 2 years, I was ignored, underpaid, and pushed aside. Now, when the company was on the brink, suddenly my name was the one they couldn't live without. But I wasn't the same person anymore. I didn't jump at their calls or rush back to the chaos. I took my time, answered carefully, set clear boundaries. I wasn't there to be a crutch, I was there to negotiate terms that respected what I'd earned. Brightnest had been reckless with the shares I'd brought in, mishandling agreements and risking the company's reputation and survival. I stepped in as a consultant, guiding them through damage control. But this time, with my conditions clearly stated. And while the company scrambled, I was already moving forward. The calls from Brightnest kept coming, each one heavier than the last. They were drowning in their own mistakes, and suddenly the person they'd pushed aside was the only one who could throw them a lifeline. But this time, I was no longer just an employee, I was the leverage. When I first sat down with their legal team and investors, it was clear they wanted to sweep everything under the rug quietly. They hoped I'd fix the mess without making waves. That was never going to happen. I laid out my terms clearly: compensation for the 2 years of unpaid raises, a consulting fee for the crisis management, and a binding agreement protecting my contributions going forward. No more empty promises. It wasn't just about the money, though I'm not ashamed to admit that mattered, it was about respect, recognition, and closing a chapter on being undervalued. Negotiations dragged on for days. I was calm, collected, but unyielding. I reminded them of the facts: the $3 million investment I secured, the countless hours of work, the risks I took on their behalf. The company needed me, and I made sure they understood it. Eventually, they agreed. That deal wasn't just a contract, it was my statement. I reclaimed my power by setting the terms on my own value. At the same time, I started ramping up my work with Silver Arc. Melis welcomed me with open arms, and I immediately felt the difference: a culture that valued innovation and respected talent. I was no longer invisible. I was in control. And for the first time in years, I could breathe easy knowing I was building something real, on my own terms. Joining Silver Arc wasn't just a job change, it was a rebirth. The culture was electric, a perfect storm of innovation, ambition, and respect. Melis wasn't just a boss, she was a leader who saw potential and nurtured it. From day one, she made it clear, Arlen, here your value is reflected in what you do, not just what you say. I hit the ground running. The fintech space was competitive, no doubt, but my experience with BrightNest was a crash course in what not to do. I had scars, sure, but also the scars of lessons learned. I immediately revamped investor communications, improved pitch strategies, and helped secure a $5 million Series A round within 6 months. But what truly mattered was the trust one built, not just with the investors, but with my team. I made it my mission to create an environment where people felt seen, heard, and rewarded. I remembered all too well what it felt like to be invisible, and I wasn't going to let anyone else feel that way under my watch. At the same time, I kept one eye on the fallout at BrightNest. Their shaky financial footing and legal troubles continued to spiral. But I wasn't drawn back in by desperation or old loyalty, I was focused on building my own path. I started thinking bigger. Silver Arc was growing, and I saw opportunities to expand beyond just fintech. I began laying plans for a startup incubator, a space where founders with disruptive ideas could get funding, mentorship, and most importantly, respect. This incubator wasn't just business. It was personal. It was my way of giving back, of changing the culture that once nearly crushed me. I was no longer just chasing survival. I was building an empire. And this time, it was on my terms. By this point, I'd come a long way, from feeling worthless at BrightNest to standing tall at Silver Arc and beyond. But there was one thing I had to learn the hard way: success isn't just about climbing higher. Sometimes, it's about knowing when to let go. I kept hearing rumors that BrightNest was struggling harder than anyone let on. Investors were pulling out, lawsuits were piling up, and the company that once treated me like a disposable asset was now desperate for help. But I refused to get pulled back into that chaos. At first, it was tempting. The company that owed me so much was in trouble, and some part of me felt responsible. But I realized that holding on to anger or resentment would only hold me back. Instead, I focused on my future. Silver Arc was thriving. The incubator I launched was attracting some of the most brilliant minds I'd ever met. Every day was a new opportunity to innovate, to build, to support others in ways I never had support. Letting go of BrightNest didn't mean forgetting what happened. It meant freeing myself from the weight of a past that no longer served me. It was the ultimate act of self-respect. And with that freedom came clarity. I wasn't just surviving anymore, I was leading. Here's the truth: success isn't just about the deals you close or the money you raise. It's about owning your story, no matter how messy or painful it gets. After everything with BrightNest, the 2 years of silence, the betrayal, the sudden firing, I found my peace not in revenge, but in growth. Now, I wake up every day with a clear purpose. I run my incubator, mentor founders, and lead Silver Arc's investor relations with the confidence of someone who knows their worth. The scars from the past? They're there, but they don't define me. Instead, they remind me why I never settle for less. When BrightNest called in a panic, begging for my help, I was ready. Not desperate. Not desperate to prove myself to them. I helped them, but on my terms. Because I finally understood that my value is mine to define. This isn't just a story about a raise or a job. It's about dignity. About standing tall when others try to put you down. About knowing when to walk away, and when to come back stronger. I'm calm. I'm confident. And I'm unstoppable. If you ever feel invisible, undervalued, or stuck, remember this: your worth is real. Your time will come. And when it does, make sure you own it. Because no one else will do it for you.